Bombardier has raised its outlook for 2026 after a strong fourth quarter. The aircraft manufacturer aims to deliver more than 150 aircraft over this year. And this comes after a recent $1.2 billion deal with Vista Global. However, with CUSMA talks looming, the now tariff-exempt company could face some turbulence. So for more on all of this, we are joined by Nicolas Owens, equity analyst at Morningstar. It's good to have you join us to break everything down. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, Lindsay.
Just overall, what do you make? What's your initial impression of this latest earnings report from Bombardier?
It was really nice. They delivered a few more planes than I had originally expected, so about 250 million higher revenue for the year. And if they sell a dozen of these 8,000s, that's about $1 billion of revenue. So it definitely adds up. It's a great outcome for them.
So Bombardier recently signed a $1.2 billion deal with Vista to sell 40 jets over the next decade with an option of 120 more jets. How significant would this be for Bombardier? Is this a little too ambitious, or do you think they can meet these goals?
Well, I think it's important to see that, to take into account that's spread out over many years. So I would see that as simply obviously it's a batch order, but it's really just business as usual for one of these fleet management type deals. It's in a way very similar to an airline placing an order with a Boeing or Airbus, 10 to 15 years out to get their spot in the calendar, if you will, for when those planes will be made.
Okay, so over 10 years, that's not a significant number. Like you're saying, that's pretty normal.
Yeah, I mean it's good business, but it's not like a game changer for the company. It's not like they weren't going to sell those planes to somebody. Does that make sense?
Yeah, got it. When we're talking about the 2026 outlook for Bombardier, it came in slightly above expectations. What do you think is driving that optimism there?
Well, I think they have a little bit of momentum on some successful product launches. And I think what's significant is these newer planes, which right now they have the fastest, farthest range business jet on the market that lists at $78 million a piece. And so, again, one plane can make a bigger difference to their top line than it used to. Their mix is shifting to these larger planes.
And when we're talking about the end of this year, that marks the completion of Bombardier's 5-year turnaround plan. I'm wondering how effective you think that turnaround plan has been so far, 4 years in.
Well, I'd say highly successful. I mean, I think even as recently as 2 years ago, investors weren't giving this company credit. They still thought they made snowmobiles or whatever, and they really have focused. And probably the biggest delta in their profile or in their business strategy that I think is going to continue to pay off is they're reasserting, let's say, wanting to be a bigger part of the aftermarket service part of the business. So they've been adding capacity, adding capabilities, so that an owner of one of these planes will come back for more, updates and service and mods over time, as well as parts, and that in the aerospace business in general is a very attractive proposition because basically you get more visibility into long-term revenue and profits to help manage the fleet. And so you saw in the quarter their aftermarket revenue grew faster than the total top line. So they've been basically gaining share of their own aftermarket, which is a very successful move for them.
Interesting. Obviously, Bombardier was in the headlines recently because of Donald Trump threatening tariffs on Canada in the aerospace sector and also threatening to declassify Bombardier jets. I'm wondering, with the upcoming CUSMA renegotiation this summer, do you think the biggest headwind that this company could face is watching to see what happens politically with the U.S.?
I think it's fair to say yes, though to be honest, I've learned to sort of make a cup of tea or something every time one of these comes out and see what happens 10 minutes later, because there's not often a follow through on every one of these types of trade threats, starting with the tariffs last April. So it's out there as a bargaining chip, frankly, and I don't think that it will likely end up blocking any kind of certification or qualifications for these jets.
Yeah, a lot of analysts are saying that now, right? That a lot of this is just noise. You have to wait and see what happens. Obviously, the president of the United States doesn't have the authority to declassify planes in Canada. But at the same time, when that came out that day, I think Bombardier's stock price went down about 7%. Like, are you worried about just even noise kind of hurting the share price at all?
Well, sure. Yes, it's understandable that investors might get spooked, and it's part of my job, hopefully, to put a note out there and explain whether it does or doesn't likely hit the bottom line. So, given, let's say, aerospace has become one of these bargaining chips in trade because it's so highly tied to imports and exports. The U.S. aerospace is the biggest exporter for the U.S., for example, and so that, given that has sort of entered the fray, if you will, around some of these negotiations, you could expect more of these types of headlines and some volatility. So, from a Morningstar point of view, we see Bombardier as an airboat company, has a very nice franchise, and unless there's a clear line of sight to how an announcement like that would hit the bottom line, 7% drop like that could be a buying opportunity, though the shares have been basically fully valued for the last several months.
For sure. Okay, we'll leave it there. That's Nicolas Owens, equity analyst at Morningstar. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.